If I had known my daughter had been recording everything, if I had known she had proof of every secret I thought I had hidden, I would have never walked into that courtroom thinking I could face my past with calm and confidence. But I did, and when she pressed play, everything I thought I controlled slipped out of my hands in front of the judge, the lawyers, and the man I had spent 17 years loving, raising a family with, and trusting. Hit subscribe now, because what you're about to hear changes everything. My name is Claire Thompson, and until last year, I thought I had the perfect family, a home full of laughter, a daughter who adored her parents, a husband I believed was devoted and kind. I thought I was a good mother, a good wife, a good person. But life has a way of quietly showing you the truth, sometimes in ways that hurt far more than you could ever imagine. I never expected the first sign would come from Lily, my daughter, the little girl I thought I knew inside and out. She had always been quiet, thoughtful, the kind of child who notices everything, more than you think. She noticed when voices got sharp. She noticed when tempers flared. She noticed when love was spoken with words but not shown in actions. And she remembered every single moment, even when we thought she wasn't listening. Emily, my best friend, and the mother of my child. No, wait. The man I married, Daniel, he never thought she was watching. He never thought she would catch the things he didn't want anyone to see. But children are like mirrors. They reflect everything you hide, everything you try to bury, and sometimes, when the moment is right, they reveal the truth to the world. Our marriage had not always been bad. For years, we laughed together. We dreamed together. We made promises too big for our young hearts to understand. But over time, things changed. Small things, invisible at first, missed dinners, harsh words, nights spent in separate rooms, life, work, and exhaustion built invisible walls around us. And slowly, those walls became barriers too high for love to climb over. Daniel and I, we tried to ignore it. We thought our love was enough to weather the storms. But love isn't always enough when communication breaks down, when resentment grows in silence, when fear begins to replace trust. And Lily, she saw it all. She saw the anger in our voices, the tension in our glances, the sadness in our smiles. She saw it and remembered it, recording it quietly in her mind and secretly on her phone. It was a Thursday night when everything came to a head. I had spent the entire day worrying about bills, deadlines, the pressures of work, and of keeping a household afloat. Daniel came home, tired and frustrated from his own day, and as soon as the door closed behind him, the anger spilled out. The words were sharp, almost slicing through the quiet of the house. Criticisms, complaints, little jabs that Daniel thought were harmless, but which cut deeper than he realized. I remember Lily standing in the doorway, clutching her stuffed rabbit like a shield. Her eyes were wide, her small body trembling, not with childish fear, but with the quiet understanding of someone who had seen too much. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. Daniel didn't see what he was doing. He thought he was correcting us. He thought he was guiding, protecting, leading. But in truth, he was breaking us quietly, piece by piece, day by day, without even noticing. I wanted to step in. I wanted to stop him. But I froze. Fear doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, and sometimes it roots you in place. And Lily, she didn't move either. She just watched, eyes wide, silent. That night, she locked herself in her room, and I knew something had changed, something I couldn't undo. Weeks passed, and the tension grew. Daniel didn't apologize. He didn't try to see what he had done. He shut himself in, convinced that everything outside his own perspective was wrong. Emily, or rather our family life, was crumbling. And Lily became a silent observer. She began recording little things, our conversations, arguments, moments of tension, and most importantly, moments when the truth about our family could no longer be hidden. I didn't know it at the time, but Lily had been preparing for the day when the world would need to see the truth. Not for revenge, not for drama, but because children have an instinct for justice, and she had felt the imbalance in our home. She had felt the unfairness, the fear, the quiet despair, and she had documented it. When the divorce papers finally arrived, I thought I was ready. I thought I had prepared myself emotionally, mentally, for the courtroom battle that would decide custody, property, and every detail of our lives. But nothing could have prepared me for Lily's intervention. Nothing could have prepared any of us for the moment she pressed play. The courtroom was full, friends and family, lawyers, the judge, reporters, though I had tried to keep the hearing private. And then Lily, brave beyond her years, reached for her phone. She told the judge she had something to show us, a video. The room went silent. I felt my heart pound, every instinct telling me to stop her, to intervene, to protect Daniel or myself. But I knew, deep down, that this was her moment, her voice, her truth. The video started, and as I watched, every lie, every hidden argument, every moment of tension we thought no one else had seen, played out in front of everyone. I could see Daniel unaware that every harsh word, every frustrated gesture, every silent resentment had been captured, and I could see myself, frozen in fear, complicit in the silence that allowed it all to happen. The judge leaned forward. Lawyers exchanged glances. Daniel's face changed. First confusion, then disbelief, then something darker. Anger? Fear? Guilt? I wasn't sure, but I knew one thing. The truth, finally, could not be denied. And Lily, my sweet, brave daughter, had delivered it. From that day forward, our lives changed. Divorce papers, custody discussions, therapy, and healing became our reality. But something else happened too. Daniel began to see himself. He began to confront the ways he had hurt us, even if the damage could never fully be undone. Emily, well, she had always known, but she now had the confirmation she needed to move forward without fear. And I had to reconcile with the mother I wanted to be, the daughter I needed to protect, and the woman I had become. Looking back, I realized something powerful. Children are often the most honest judges of our actions. They see what we hide. They feel what we ignore. And sometimes they reveal the truth in ways that shatter illusions, but also heal wounds. Lily's video didn't just expose Daniel, it exposed all of us. Our denial, our fear, our inability to face reality. And in that exposure, it also gave us a chance to begin again, slowly, carefully, honestly. The day Lily played that video, I understood something I had never realized before. Love is not enough when actions betray it. And courage, real courage, sometimes comes from the smallest among us. And for anyone watching this story, anyone struggling with family, fear, or unspoken truths, remember this: sometimes the truth needs to be seen, not hidden. Sometimes the smallest voice can shake the largest walls, and sometimes the people we think are powerless are the ones who save us from ourselves. I remember the courtroom like it was yesterday. The heavy wooden benches, the faint smell of polished floors, the judge sitting sternly, papers stacked neatly before her, as if the weight of our lives depended on that desk alone. Friends and family had quietly filed in, their whispers soft but their eyes sharp. And there was Daniel sitting across from me, the man I had loved, feared, and ultimately had to face as the man who had hurt our family in ways I could no longer ignore. And then Lily, my daughter, walked up. My chest tightened as she held her phone, her small fingers trembling ever so slightly. I saw determination in her eyes, the kind that can only come from someone who has carried a burden too heavy for their age. She didn't speak for long, just enough to tell the judge that she had something to show, something important that needed to be seen. The room fell silent. Even Daniel seemed to forget how to breathe. She pressed play. The video began with clips I had no idea she had recorded. At first, they were subtle. Moments of tension, Daniel sighing loudly when bills were discussed, short words that carried a weight I had ignored. But soon, the clips grew more revealing. Arguments we thought were private were now displayed in full. Conversations that had once seemed trivial were now undeniable evidence of the fear and anxiety that had silently infected our home. I watched Daniel's face change. First confusion, as if he couldn't comprehend what he was seeing. Then disbelief, as though he was hoping the judge would stop the video before the truth fully unfolded. And finally, guilt. That creeping, undeniable guilt that comes only when someone is confronted with proof they can no longer deny. The video showed the nights when he had stormed into the house frustrated, yelling over small inconveniences. It showed moments when Lily had shrunk into herself, holding her stuffed rabbit tightly, her eyes wide and unblinking. It captured my own hesitation, my own fear, the silent complicity I had maintained by not speaking up sooner. The video didn't exaggerate. It didn't dramatize. It simply recorded reality, the small, devastating reality of a family quietly unraveling. I couldn't stop watching, and I couldn't stop thinking. Lily was brave beyond her years. She had held on to this evidence not for revenge, not for spite, but for truth. And now the truth was undeniable. The courtroom shifted. Whispers rippled through the benches as people absorbed what they were seeing. The judge leaned forward, peering over her glasses. She glanced at Daniel and then at me, silently acknowledging the weight of what we had allowed to happen in our home. Daniel's lawyer whispered something quickly, but the words were drowned out by the video, by the reality unfolding, by the undeniable truth that we had all been ignoring. I felt a mix of emotions, anger, sadness, shame, relief, all of it crashing into me at once. I wanted to cry. I wanted to scream. But most of all, I wanted to protect Lily. She was the smallest among us, yet she had done the largest thing. She had forced honesty into a space that had been clouded with denial for too long. The video wasn't just about Daniel, it was about our entire family. Every moment of silence where no one spoke up, every moment of fear where we pretended everything was fine, every time love was spoken but not shown, it was all there, in stark clarity. Daniel tried to respond, tried to justify, tried to explain away what the video revealed, but words are fragile against proof. The judge didn't interrupt, didn't dismiss, didn't soften. She simply let the truth stand, and the truth was uncomfortable, undeniable, and transformative. As the video ended, the courtroom was silent. I could feel the weight of every pair of eyes on us. I could feel Daniel's shoulders slump, a mixture of defeat and disbelief. I could see Lily standing tall despite the tears that had begun to form in her eyes, and I could feel my own body relax in a strange way, as though a long-held tension had finally been released. In that moment, I realized something profound. Families are fragile, yes. Relationships are complex, yes. But courage can come from anywhere, and sometimes it comes from the most unexpected source. In our case, it came from our daughter, who had watched, recorded, and then revealed the truth in a way that forced us all to face ourselves. After the video, the proceedings continued. Lawyers questioned Daniel about the moments captured, about the arguments, about the tension that had grown over the years. He tried to explain, to rationalize, to shift blame. But the video spoke louder than any argument. Each clip replayed in my mind as if to remind me that reality cannot be altered, that the truth cannot be hidden, that children notice far more than we ever give them credit for. Emily, No, my mind kept flashing to Daniel, was quiet for most of the hearing. He looked broken, unmasked, stripped of the pretense he had carried for so long. And yet, there was a strange sense of relief in his eyes, too, as though the confrontation, while painful, was necessary. Sometimes the truth is painful, but it also frees us from the chains we didn't know we were wearing. And then Lily spoke. She told the judge in her calm, steady voice that she wanted to ensure the truth was known, that our family needed to move forward honestly, and that she loved both of us but needed protection from the fear that had grown in our home. The room went still again, the weight of her words sinking into every corner of that courtroom. She was small, yet her voice carried more authority than any adult present. The judge nodded, understanding the importance of what was happening. She spoke gently but firmly, acknowledging the courage Lily had shown and the necessity for all of us to take responsibility for our actions. For the first time, I felt like there was a path forward, not just for Daniel and me, but for Lily, who had been caught in the crossfire of our failures. We spent the rest of the day in the courtroom discussing custody, therapy, and the steps necessary to ensure a safe, healthy environment for Lily. The discussions were long and emotionally exhausting, but at the center of everything was one undeniable fact. Lily had changed the course of our family with the truth. And while the divorce was inevitable, her courage had created a foundation upon which we could rebuild respect, understanding, and accountability. As I watched Daniel leave the courtroom that day, I saw a man beginning to understand the consequences of his actions. I saw someone forced to confront himself in a way he had never done before. And I saw Lily, quietly holding my hand, feeling the weight of responsibility and courage that no child should ever have to carry, yet somehow managing it with grace and strength. Walking out of the courthouse, I realized something essential. Families aren't perfect, relationships are messy, and love, while powerful, is not always enough to protect against denial and fear. But courage, honest, brave, undeniable courage, can change everything. And in our case, that courage had come from the smallest person in the room. In the weeks that followed, therapy sessions began for Daniel, for Lily, and for me. We talked about feelings, about fear, about anger, and about hope. We discussed mistakes and accountability. And slowly, painfully, we began to rebuild some sense of understanding. The divorce would proceed, yes, but it would be conducted with honesty and care, guided by the lessons Lily had taught us. I've often reflected on that day, the day Lily pressed play and the truth could no longer be hidden. It was painful, humiliating, terrifying, and yet liberating. Because sometimes the only way forward is to face reality, even when reality is uncomfortable. And sometimes the people we least expect to lead the way are the ones who do. Lily didn't just show a video. She showed us the consequences of silence, of avoidance, and of unchecked fear. She showed us that courage isn't measured by age or size, but by the willingness to act when the stakes are highest. And she showed us that even in broken families, even amidst divorce, even in moments of despair, there is hope. That day in the courtroom, everything changed. And while the story wasn't over, and while the wounds wouldn't fully heal overnight, we had taken the first step towards something that had once felt impossible: honesty, accountability, and a future where fear no longer ruled our home. After the hearing, life didn't magically become easier. In fact, the first few weeks were some of the hardest I've ever experienced. Courtrooms, lawyers, custody arrangements, and the constant replay of the video in my mind made every day feel heavier. But something had shifted. For the first time in years, the truth was no longer a silent shadow in our home. It was out in the open, undeniable, and forcing all of us to confront reality. Daniel was different now. Not entirely, but enough that I noticed. The first few days after the hearing, he was quiet. He avoided his usual defensive humor, the sarcasm, the criticism that had filled our home for so long. He spent hours in reflection, sometimes speaking aloud to himself about how he could have done better, about the ways he had hurt both Lily and me. I'll admit, at first I was skeptical. I thought it might be a show, a way to save face, but slowly, through therapy and consistent effort, I realized he was genuinely beginning to understand. Lily, my brave little girl, became the anchor in all of this. Even amidst chaos, she was calm, wise beyond her years, and incredibly strong. I often caught her glancing at Daniel with a mixture of caution and hope, as if silently reminding him that the video had changed the rules of our family. She didn't hold anger in the way adults sometimes do. She held clarity, a clear understanding that boundaries mattered, that honesty mattered, and that courage, no matter your age, could change everything. For me, it was a time of reflection. I had spent years trying to hold our family together, sometimes at the cost of my own voice. Watching Lily step forward and reveal the truth reminded me of my own responsibility, not only as a mother, but as a partner in shaping the environment in which she grew up. I realized that silence in the face of tension can be as damaging as anger itself. And for the first time, I committed fully to being present, honest, and brave alongside her. Our therapy sessions were intense. Daniel sat through every one, sometimes silently listening, sometimes forced to confront truths about his behavior. I remember one session in particular. The therapist asked him to describe what he felt when Lily played the video in court. At first, he avoided the question. Then he spoke haltingly, admitting he felt fear, guilt, and shame, but also, strangely, relief. Relief that the truth was finally out, that he no longer had to pretend that everything was okay, and that he had a chance, finally, to change. We also focused on Lily, helping her process the weight of what she had done. It was enormous for a 14-year-old to carry, to document, and to reveal the truth about the adults she trusted most. We reassured her constantly that she had acted out of courage and love, not malice, that she had helped everyone face the truth, even when it was scary. And slowly, she began to relax. She began to understand that exposing the truth didn't mean breaking her family completely. It meant giving us a chance to rebuild, piece by piece. Daniel's progress was gradual. Some days he would regress, snapping over small inconveniences, letting old patterns creep back in. But other days, he listened, he reflected, he apologized. And what surprised me most was his willingness to accept accountability. Not for the sake of appearances, but because he genuinely understood the impact of his actions. Lily noticed it too. One evening, she hugged him without hesitation, whispering that she appreciated him trying. In that moment, I saw the possibility of healing, not a return to what we once had, but the start of something new. Meanwhile, I had to reconcile my own feelings. I had loved this man, had shared decades of life with him, and yet I had been hurt, fearful, and uncertain for so long. Watching Lily step forward gave me clarity. It wasn't about choosing sides. It was about truth, safety, and growth. I realized that even amidst divorce, even amidst broken promises, we could create an environment of honesty, accountability, and respect for our daughter. That became my mission. We adjusted to our new reality. Daniel moved into a separate apartment, and our schedules became coordinated for Lily's stability. We instituted rules for communication that prioritized respect and clarity. No yelling, no passive-aggressive comments, no leaving unspoken tension to fester. And Lily, she flourished. Her grades improved, her laughter returned, and her trust in us deepened because she saw that her voice mattered and that courage could lead to change. One night, months after the hearing, I found myself sitting with Lily in her room. She had her tablet in hand, playing a video she had made, not exposing anyone, not revealing secrets, but capturing moments of gratitude. She smiled at the camera and said, "I just want to remember the good, Mom, and remind us to keep trying even when it's hard." I held her close and whispered that I loved her, that I was proud of her, and that she had taught me more about courage than anyone else ever could. At that moment, I realized something important. Families aren't defined by perfection. They're defined by honesty, resilience, and the willingness to face difficult truths. And sometimes, the smallest among us hold the most powerful lessons. Daniel called occasionally, sending messages of support and accountability. We didn't share the same home anymore, but there was a new sense of partnership in co-parenting. We had learned to put our daughter first, to communicate openly, and to accept our flaws without allowing them to define the family entirely. Slowly, the fear and tension that had dominated our lives began to lift, replaced by a cautious optimism. Looking back, I understand now why Lily did what she did. She wasn't trying to humiliate anyone. She wasn't trying to punish. She was simply giving everyone a chance to see the truth, to acknowledge it, confront it, and act differently. And in doing so, she reshaped our family, our priorities, and even the way we thought about courage and accountability. The journey wasn't easy. Divorce never is. Healing never is. But the courage that Lily displayed in that courtroom created a ripple effect that none of us could have predicted. Daniel faced himself, I faced myself, and Lily. She learned that even the youngest voice can hold immense power. I tell this story not just as a reflection on my own life, but as a lesson for anyone struggling with fear, silence, or family conflict. Courage is contagious. Honesty can change everything. And sometimes it is the smallest person in the room who forces the largest transformations. Months later, as I watched Lily laughing in the backyard, playing with friends, her face unburdened and radiant, I felt a deep sense of gratitude, not for the divorce, not for the pain, but for the truth she had revealed, the strength she had shown, and the clarity she had given all of us. Life continues. Daniel and I still navigate co-parenting, therapy sessions, and occasional disagreements. But the foundation has shifted. Lily knows her voice matters. We know that truth is essential. And I know without a doubt that one brave act can change the course of a family's future forever. So if you take anything from this story, let it be this. Courage doesn't wait for perfect conditions. Honesty doesn't ask permission, and even the smallest among us can create the most profound change. Lily's video didn't just expose our failures, it illuminated our potential, our accountability, and our ability to rebuild, even amidst the most painful circumstances. And for anyone watching this struggling with family, fear, or silence, remember this: the truth is powerful, honesty is transformative, and courage, no matter who shows it, can save a family from itself.